I don't know how I feel about this background. We're just trying something different today. We'll give it a go. Hi! Welcome back. I'm back with another video. Today I've decided to do kind of two videos combined into one. So I'm going to do my wrap up of everything I read in February, which just so happened to be 4 books, which for me would be like slightly less than usual, but I was in like a massive reading slump in February and I couldn't shake it, but we're finally getting out of it. So because I only read 4 books, I decided I could combine my wrap up with all of the books I bought and was gifted and that I got off friends in February, because there's quite a few. So I thought it might be fun to like mix the two together, and yeah, it should make it a longer, more interesting video, because who doesn't like to see new books that people got? And even though I only read 4 books in February, there was some really good ones in there. There was actually one that I think has been the highlight of my year so far and will take a lot to top it. So that's exciting. So yeah, I'm gonna grab the books and we can get into the video. Okay, there's a lot more than I expected here. And I thought today I would change the setup and we will chill on my bed and talk through the books and just get comfy, because it's a Friday, and what better on a Friday than to sit in bed and talk about books. So come and join me, get a nice cup of tea or a nice drink and some biscuits, and let's talk books. So first of all, I'm going to go through the books that I read in February and tell you what I thought of them, like a little bit about what they were about, and yeah, just give you my overall rating and thoughts on the books. So I started the month off with an audiobook. I had a market coming up in February where I sell my artwork and all that good stuff, so I was quite busy with work. So I was like, an audiobook is perfect. I was browsing through my library book app, BorrowBox, which is amazing, cannot recommend anymore. And I found a Stephen King novella that I had never heard of before, and I was like, I am going to listen to this. It ended up only being like an hour and 40 minutes or something, so I was like, perfect, I'm going to stick that on. So the book was, I'll put the little photo here, Riding the Bullet, yes. And unfortunately this just didn't do it for me. It started off really strong. It's really creepy. It's like about a guy who is trying to get home to his mother, who is in hospital, and he's terrified if he does not get there on time that she is going to pass away. So he is doing like his living their best to get there, but his car is, I think, either broken down or in the garage, so he's like trying to tow a lift. So he ends up towing a lift with this really dodgy, weird man, and he's like, I think I'm going to get killed if I stay in the car with this man. So he ends up getting out at a graveyard and waiting to tow a lift with the next car. When he does that, he starts to realise that, okay, things are really creepy. He starts to think that the second man that he's getting a lift with is actually dead. So he was like afraid of the first guy and afraid that the second guy was dead. So then you're like going through the motions of differentiating what's real and what's not, because you're like, is this guy just hallucinating? What's going on? But without like spoiling any of the story or whatever, for me, the first half was amazing. Like really, really creepy, really eerie. I was like, oh my god, what's real and what's not? But then the second half, I was just like, I'm getting a bit bored now. It was very repetitive, and then in the second half, there's just no real like conclusion to the story. It doesn't, like, it just kind of plays out in a very average kind of way, in my opinion. It just wasn't like Stephen King's usual level of like effed up, crazy. It was kind of more, I don't even know, because it wasn't normal either. But yeah, anyway, I finished it and I was like, thank god it was only an hour and 40 minutes. Like, it was worth the listen because it was so short. But if it had been any longer, I probably would have DNF'd it. So for that reason, I just rated it 2 stars, because it was fine, but yeah, nothing for me to like go on and on about. Why do I always get myself so out of breath when I'm filming these videos? So the next book I read in February was actually on my Kindle. I actually didn't read any physical books at all in February. I have no idea why. Maybe that was like the signs that I was starting my slump, because I was very much just feeding my Kindle. So the next book I picked up was called No One Saw a Thing by Andrea Mara, who is an Irish author. And I was accepted for this as a NetGalley ARC, so I was very excited. I've heard really good things about her thriller Hide and Seek, so I wanted to give this a go. It was so good. Like, it was so good. This was like an easy 5 stars for me. It was like a fast-paced thriller where you just can't trust anybody. The story is basically about this woman, I can't remember the characters' names right now, forgive me. This woman who, with her husband, is on like a trip to London with their 2 small kids, and they're there to visit her partner's friends. So she's never met them before, so they're literally over just to meet his friends. And while she's there, she's still trying to work like on her phone and stuff because she works from home. And there's one morning where he has already met the friends, but she's rushing to get there with the 2 kids. And as they like board one of the tubes at the tube station, as the kids are getting onto the tube, she's following with her baby in its pram. The doors close and she watches her 2 kids get taken away by the tube. So she's obviously like freaking out, as any mother would do. But she immediately goes to like whatever security are working, and they're like, it's fine, we'll alert the people at the next station and we will get your children off the train. So she like immediately rushes. These are all spoiler free like descriptions, by the way. She rushes to the next tube station and only one of her kids is waiting for her. There is no sign of the other kid, and the kid that is there is too young to like verbally explain what happened or where her sister is. So it kind of starts from there. You're obviously, you know, missing child trope, and oh my gosh, there's so many characters in this because you get introduced to all of her partner's friends that they're over to visit, and I swear to God, every single character in this story is sketchy AF, like so sketchy. And you kind of get to see in different chapters their different point of views. So the more you're reading and the more point of views you read from, the more about the situation comes to light. So there's a lot more to her child being missing than she thinks, which is very isolating in London when you don't know anybody and you're not from there. So this was like one of those, I need to find out what happens, I have to stay going. Like, so juicy, so good. So yeah, for me it was like a solid 5-star read. I read it in like 2 days, I think. Couldn't put it down. Incredible, really good. I would highly recommend. I'll definitely be picking up her other books after this. My next read was also a Kindle read, which was also a NetGalley ARC. I got accepted for this one recently, and I saw that the release date was like a week or 2 from when I received it, so I was like, I might as well like bump this up to the top of my TBR and give it a read. And that was The Shape of Your Heart by Debbie Howell. I've not read any of her novels before, but after reading kind of like a thriller and listening to like a horror audiobook, I was like, let's give romance a go. Like, let's go. And it was coming up to Valentine's Day, so I was like, it's the month of love. Let's give love a go. So overall for me, this one was like 3 stars. I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed the premise of it and the storyline of it. It was very deep. It was very emotional. It follows the story of our main character who loses her husband on the day of her wedding in a car accident, and it fast forward to like a year later and her grieving process and how she's coming to terms with that, how she's learning to cope and how her life has changed since her wedding day. She was like hugely into gardening, so when she meets this guy on a beach and gets talking to him, she finds out that he is new to the neighbourhood, he has just moved in, and he needs somebody to tend to his garden. So to kind of like come out of her comfort zone and to kind of get her hobbies back, she decides to take on the mission of doing up his garden for him and making it a nice home. So she begins to work for him, and yeah, like the romance begins to blossom. There's some very cute moments. It's very realistic writing on a new relationship after grief. Like, obviously that's not something I've experienced personally, but it wasn't like she was like, oh, I've met this new guy, like forget my fiance that passed away, let's just move on. It very much digs into how deep it is and how hard it is for somebody to move on and be selfless enough to give themselves love again after losing that. So I really admired those aspects of the book. Like I really did admire that. I loved our main male character. I thought he was so nice, he was so charming, but he was really caring, really understanding, like everything you would want obviously in a man in that situation. But when their romance began to blossom in the story, there's obviously a lot of side stories going on in both. You're learning a lot about his past life, why he moved here, as well as hers and her family. But yeah, I think obviously the premise of the story was for you to feel empathy and like sorrow for her and her situation, which I did, like wholeheartedly. But when she got more romantic with our male main character, again, I can't remember the bloody names. I could just look them up, but we're here, it's fine. I wasn't her biggest fan then. She was like basically, in my opinion, like telling him how she wanted him to be. Like he was obviously his own person and he was very different to her past relationship, but it was like if she didn't agree with something that he did, she was like trying to change him. And that was like what I thought was the whole premise of the book, was her like molding him into her perfect man rather than him just being lovable as himself. And I didn't really like that. I found that she could be a bit like stroppy and tantrumy if she didn't get her way. And then about 3/4 of the way through, there was a twist that just kind of made me eye roll. Like I'm just, if you've read it, you're gonna know what I'm talking about, but I'm just not a fan of those kind of twists. Yeah, like overall I would rate it 3 stars because I really liked the story. I really liked the budding romance, like when it was like blossoming. I really enjoyed the male main character and I enjoyed her on her own. But when the relationship started really becoming more solid, I was getting the ick. I was getting the ick and I just couldn't come back from it. That was it. It was done. So I would definitely recommend it to other people because I know there's some other people out there who read romance like all the time, like it's their go-to genre, and I think they would love this. Like it would probably be up a lot of people's street, but for me personally, it was a bit too cliche. It was a bit too, I don't even know what the right word is. But yeah, you get what I'm trying to say. And then the last book I read fully in February was Cat Lady by Dawn Porter, and oh my god, I loved this book. Like I have never laughed out loud as much reading a book as I did with this one. Like I was from the start like peeing my pants laughing to then later on in the book like floods of tears. Like the most emotional roller coaster. If you are a huge cat lover and you're a huge cat person, which I am, like definitely go into this like cautiously because there is some upset, there is themes around pet grief. Just if that's something that you're currently going through or that's something that triggers you, just wanted to put that warning out there. It doesn't spoil the story, but this follows our main character Mia. I actually remember the name for this one, and she like has the cliche perfect life. Like she's got her husband, she's got her stepson, they have a house, she's got a really good job, like everything is going great. She has a cat that she loves, she's a crazy cat lady and we are here for it. And then one day her whole life is flipped upside down, her marriage falls apart, she loses her job, she's basically on the verge of becoming homeless, and she kind of has a bit of a nervous breakdown. The book does this so well because it is, parts of it are so realistic as to what it's like to kind of have things fall apart for you. Oh my god, did she write this in such a comedic way. Like literally could not stop laughing. The characters were just, there were so many of them that were just so insufferable, like so insufferable, but they were just infectious to read. Like you just wanted more and more of them, like give me more. She does not handle all these things very well. She kind of makes situations worse for herself, and the whole book is just kind of growing with her as she overcomes her life falling apart, basically. It's like uplifting, it's heartwarming, it's sad, it's realistic, it's bonkers crazy at points. Like totally not realistic when it gets to the crazy bonkers bits. But oh my god, this would make such a good movie. And as somebody who loves cats and as somebody who had a cat and cared for a cat. My little kitty was very sick for a long time. It goes into the depth of what it means to be a pet owner and how much they affect your life in comparison to, you know, people who are like, oh, it's just a dog or it's just a cat. No, like this book gets it. It just gets it, and it explains it in such... I have never related to so much of a book before in my life. And for me, I was just like, this book has blown it out of the park. Like it was just everything I wanted and more. I think I loved it, and I can't believe I've never picked up a Dawn O'Porter book before today, because like absolutely, if this one is one to go off, I'm gonna read her backlist like 100%. So that kind of rounds up all my reads for February. I did get like 20% through Twisted Love by Anna Huang, but unfortunately I ended up DNFing it. It was not for me. I was getting triggered. That male main character in that book, walking red flag. So I know like some people are into that stuff when they read, but for me, I was like, I cannot stick around and watch this man have his needs satisfied by the lovely lady in the book who does not deserve to give him her time of day because he's a literal asshole. So I've heard that the series gets better as it goes on, so maybe I'll give the others a chance in future, but for me, I think like that could have been the start of my reading slump because it was my first DNF of the year, but it's fine. It's fine. Now to go through everything I bought / was gifted / was given in February, and here is the evidence of that. I have 11 books in total. Yeah, I'm not doing the best job of reducing my TBR, am I? But we'll try again in March. I did pick out my March TBR in my last video, and I've picked out all physical books from the month of March so that we can hopefully reduce my TBR a little bit, so we're just going to go with that. But for now, let me show you all of the books that I got in February. Okay, so let's just get into this. I think you can see some of what they are from my last video, but I'm just going to show them again really briefly. We won't stay on them for too long. The very first book that I got in February was After I Do by Taylor Jenkins Reid. So I was actually really kindly gifted this from a friend on Bookstagram, which I'm so thankful for. And this sounds really good. It's like one of the only Taylor Jenkins Reids. Actually, I think there's one other one I don't have, but I pretty much have her entire collection now, so I am very excited to read this one. This sounds like a really good right person, wrong time kind of romance, because it says on the back that like just waiting for my dogs to stop barking. Their marriage has reached like a breaking point, and they want to find a way to fall in love again, but they're going to take a year off from each other, and the only rule is that they cannot speak to one another. So that's very much like right person, wrong time. It has to work out. Yeah, and then living apart, Lauren confronts her own ideas about monogamy and marriage, and what does that mean for love, and what are they willing to fight for. Yeah, this sounds really good. Sounds like it's going to be a sticky situation kind of romance book. Sounds very good, and it's Taylor Jenkins Reid, so it's bound to be a good book, and yeah, I'm very excited for that. Up next, I have The Second Cut by Louise Welch, and this was actually really kind of gifted to me from the publisher, Canongate Publishing, which thank you very much for sending this out to me. So this is a dark literary crime novel kind of a book. It's recommended on the back by Paula Hawkins, which is always like a good indicator. Well, for me anyway. I know some people don't like them stuff at all, but I am such a sucker for if an author that I've liked recommends the book, I'm like, oh, I may get that, they like that, I like them, you know. Yeah, so this sounds like very dark actually. It follows like a woman who gives a tip for a house clearance because the guy that she's given the tip to does auctions, but the day after she gives the tip she is found dead, and it says on the back of it that the guy Rilke, his name is Rilke, he knows that the woman who gave him the tip off like enjoyed sex parties, etc., and he is really agitated because the police are not investigating it, and he's wondering, is that because she was like a sex worker and stuff. So it sounds like it's definitely going to be a dark crime novel, but I've been loving crime novels recently, so this sounds very good. I've never heard of this author before, so it will be my first book from them. But yeah, I'll give it a go. I'm excited. So if you follow my Bookstagram, you may have seen that in February I travelled down to Cork, which is about a 2-hour bus ride from where I live, to visit some of my Booksta pals. We went for brunch, we went book shopping, and it was literally the loveliest weekend ever. So of course I bought some books. But I also went down to stay with my friend Stacey, who, it was our first time meeting, and it was literally so lovely to finally meet her in real life. And when I got there, she was literally like, here's a pile of books that I have read and I don't want anymore. Do you want to read it? And I was like, absolutely. So I've come back with 4 books that Stacey really kindly passed along to me. We always try to like swap books back and forth, but she can read at the speed of light. So she always has so much more than what I can give her back. So thank you, Stacey, you're an angel. She really kindly gave me Wahala. This is the hardback copy. Look how beautiful this pink spine is. But like, this cover is just so beautiful. This sounds like it's gonna be a really great novel in terms of like friendship, relationships, growing up, like becoming an adult, what you want, but then it also says about them tackling racism. It's a group of 3 mixed race friends who are living in London, and then the little thing on the top says it's a funny, tragic, piercing portrait of modern women and friendship. So I feel like this is just going to be a really insightful read. I think it should be educational and witty and just a bit of everything, I think. I always find with these books, like, they can be so heartwarming, but then they also really pack a punch. So yeah, like, I hope this lives up to the hype, because I remember seeing this all over Bookstagram when it first came out, so I'm very excited. She then also really kindly gave me the hardback copy of The Bullet That Missed, which is the 3rd book in the Thursday Murder Club series. I don't know if there's going to be any more, or if it's just going to be a trilogy. I've not read any of these books, but I have the first 2, and she was like, go on, take the 3rd. Like, if you like the first 2, you'll be like kicking yourself if you don't take this one. And I was like, yeah, and then, you know, if I don't end up enjoying the other 2, I can always pass this along to somebody else. But I am hoping to get around to the Thursday Murder Club very soon, because it has literally been on my TBR for like 2 years now, I want to say. I feel like I got that very early in 2020 when I kind of started like my book page. So yeah, I'm really hoping I do like it, so that the fact that I have the 2nd and 3rd book will come in handy. Does anybody else do that? Like, buy an entire trilogy or series of books before you've even read the first one? You're like, damn, if I don't like this book, I have the entire series. But thankfully that's not like scorned me yet. Everything I've read so far that I've loved. So hopefully this will follow suit. I know it's got very popular reviews, but I also have seen some very hit and miss ones, so we'll see. It's a murder mystery club. I feel like I'm gonna love it. Next, she really kindly passed me on this little scratchbook by Rebecca Watson. I was really unsure as to whether this is going to be something I like or not, but she was like, it's such a quick read, like, just give it a go. And it's all like kind of done in like prose and poetry, and the words are all scattered, so it's quite short. I have no idea what it's about. I don't think I've even read the blurb. There isn't really a blurb. The whole back of it is just other authors giving their 2 cents, but the fact it's so short and it's kind of poetry, like, I feel like you could end up sitting and reading this in one sitting, so I'm willing to give it a go. No idea if I'll like it or not, but yeah, it's got a really pretty cover, so I know that's nothing to go by, but I do love a pretty cover. So next up I have this one. And then last but not least, Stacey gave me Really Good Actually, which I feel like I've seen everywhere lately. And again, I actually don't know a whole lot about this one. I think it's about a breakup, is it? Yeah, like a young divorcee throws herself headlong into the chaos of her first year of divorce. She finds herself questioning everything, including, why do we still get married? Did I fail before I even got started? And how many 4 AM delivery burgers do I need to eat until I am happy? That sounds fun. Like, not for her, but I like those kind of stories where, again, you're like, in your 30s and things just aren't going your way and you kind of have to figure life out for yourself. I've again seen quite mixed reviews about this, and I was actually going to pick this up in the bookstore when I was down in Cork, but Stacey was like, I have it, I've read it, you can have it. I think she enjoyed it. I think she said she gave it 4 stars. So I'm willing to give it a go anyway. I know that there's other books that kind of have similar themes to these, like Ghosts by Dolly Alderton. I really liked that book. So if that's anything to go by, I would like to think that this will live up to expectation. Actually, look, Dolly Alderton says hilarious and profound. So maybe wildly funny, almost alarmingly relatable. I feel like it's going to be one of those books that you're like, it's not going to blow you away, but it's just going to be one that you can sit and read when you need like an easy comfort character read. So yeah, and this cover is so cute as well. Really love it. So thank you, Stacey, for all of those. You've literally spoiled me. Oh, I'm missing one. 1 second. I ended up buying 2 books when I was in Cork. The first one was The Dark by Emma Houghton, which has been on my wish list for... Oh, I got a bookmark with it. I didn't even know that. I got this from Vibes and Scribes in Cork, which I'd never been there before, and I was obsessed. I just picked this one up. I think it ended up being like €6. And yeah, this is like a dark, secluded, snowy, isolating thriller. And there's nothing I love more than all of those things combined. And it says 1 dead body, 12 suspects, 24-hour darkness. I love shit like that. Yes, this is about our main character who is an A&E doctor, and she gets sent on an opportunity to be an emergency replacement at the UN research station in the Antarctica. So she obviously jumps at the chance, and then she says the previous doctor, Jean-Luc, died in a tragic accident while out there on the ice. Is that a sign? This move seems like an ideal solution for Kate. No one knows about her past, no one's checking up on her. We love a dark, mysterious character as well. That's what I've really loved about Sarah Pearce's books, and there's somebody else's books that I've read as well, where like the DI or the person you're following is also a bit shady and you're like, what are you hiding? Why are you trying to get away from people? But as the darkness descends for the winter, she begins to suspect that Jean-Luc's death wasn't accidental at all. Shock. And the more questions she asks, the more dangerous it becomes. So yeah, this is just everything I look for in a thriller. I'm buzzing for this. Next up, I picked up So Happy For You, which has also been on, I think I put this on my wish list around October time last year. And I happened to get this one in the secondhand section in Vibes and Scribes. So this hardback was €7, which, bargain, like love that. So this one is about 2 best friends, from what I gathered anyway, and they've done everything together like their whole lives, and then one of them is getting married and she asks the other to be her maid of honour, but the other one does not believe in marriage and does not want to be in the bridal party, but because it's her best friend she decides to like sacrifice what she believes in and becomes her maid of honour. And when she does, basically everything starts falling apart and she realises that, what did it say exactly? She gets the feeling that everybody in the bridal party is out to get her, and it seems Ellie is willing to do anything for her perfect day. After all, marriage is about sacrifice. So I think this sounds like it's going to be like a witty, like Finlay Donovan style, you know, where you're like laughing along but there's also darkness to it. It says a firecracker of a book, brilliantly witty and entertaining. So I don't think this is going to be like a dark thriller. I think this is going to be like a comedy thriller. And yeah, sometimes they're just like perfect for in between the really dark reads. So this sounds fun, and the fact that I got the hardback for €7, delighted. Then the last 4 books I have were all really kindly gifted to me from publishers. So like, I still have like pinch me moments when I get like book mail and I'm like, who is this from? And I open it and it's like Penguin and stuff, and you're like, what? Little old me? The very first book I got sent was actually from Penguin, and I got sent The Drift by CJ Tudor, which is another like isolating, cold in the snow murder mystery. And I'm pretty sure this one's about like skiing and like people being stuck on what are they called? Like the ski lifts? Yeah, it says an overturned coach full of students, all of them are trapped. A stranded cable car full of strangers, one of them is dead. An isolated chalet full of friends, soon they'll be enemies. So your classic whodunit, we can't get anybody to come and save us because we're stuck in the snow. These two are giving off similar vibes, but like this is up there with like my favourite kind of thrillers. I don't know what it is about being stuck somewhere in the snow and nobody can come and get you and somebody is killing everybody. Like, it's so dark, but it never gets old. So I think this sounds amazing, and I've heard incredible things about C.J. Tudor. I have not read any of her books yet. I feel like I want to bump some of these like kind of colder winter thrillers up my TBR before like spring is fully here, because I know it is spring right now, but I think we're due to get snow next week or something, so might be the perfect time to mood read one of them, even though I did set myself a TBR, but doesn't matter. Then this one is kind of funny, and if you watched my January haul, no, my January wrap up, I said when I read the first book that I wasn't very pushed on picking up the sequel. Well, I got sent the sequel. I didn't know I was going to get sent the sequel, but that is 11 Liars by Robert Cole. So I read 12 Secrets in January, which is the first book, and I did give it 3 stars. I said that I really enjoyed it. It was like a crime novel, but I did find it very hard to follow along. There was a lot of characters, there was a lot of stuff going on, and for me that just kind of made the book fall short a little bit, because I never fully got invested in the storyline. And then I said if it was up to me myself, I probably wouldn't go out and purchase the sequel. And I'm going to sound like a big hypocrite now, because here I am with it. But I am actually really thankful to have gotten sent this, and I will give it a go. And if it's not for me, I will pass it on to somebody else. But there is many books before that I haven't been the biggest fan of the first one and have loved the second, and I think with crime novels a lot of time the only thing that carries on from one book to the next is maybe like the lead investigator or the police officer, but like the stories are different and the crimes are different. So I'll give it a go. I'll probably know in the first like 50 to 100 pages whether it's for me or not, and it could really, really surprise me. So yeah, and I am very, very thankful to Tandem and Sphere Publishing for sending this out to me. I don't know if I mentioned it on here before, but I am a ambassador for Tandem over on TikTok. I run like a thriller ambassador for them, so they really kindly sent me out this. They just send out thrillers every now and again, and some you know you're going to get and some you don't, and this was one I had no idea I was going to get, so I'm going to give it a go. We're going to give it a lash. My battery is flashing, so we're going to go quick. The next 2 I talked about in my last video, so I won't go into detail about them. But the very first one was Lovestruck by Laura Jane Williams, and I got sent this by Penguin really kindly. I actually reached out to them and asked them did they have any proofs left, because I am obsessed with Laura J. Williams' romance novels. She's just a romance novel author that I just really, really enjoy, and I'm not like an avid romance reader. Like, I do dabble, but it's not my like go-to genre. So to find an author that I loved so much that I read basically most of her backlist, I think the only one I haven't read is her Just for December that came out at Christmas time, and Our Stop is the only other one I have on my TBR. I've read the rest and I've loved the rest. They were all 4 and 5 star reads for me, so I was like, I'm going to reach out and see if they would mind sending me any proofs they had left. So I had reached out and they really kind of got back to me, and they were like, yes, we have some, I will send it out to you. And I was like, thank you so much. So this arrived, and yeah, it's beautiful. It sounds great. I can't wait to read it. I'm definitely gonna get to it soon. This is on my March TBR, and yeah, it's so pretty, so I'm very excited. And then last but not least, which I also touched on in my last video, was that I got sent Conviction by Jack Jordan. He had put up like a poll on Instagram and on Twitter, and it was basically about the blurb of this, and you just basically clicked whether you thought the people were going to be guilty or not guilty, even though you have no context of the story and you have no idea what's going to happen. And when you click your answer, you give your details, and then he was just like randomly picking people based on their answers to send proofs out to, and I just so happened to get one, and I was so excited because Jack Jordan is just an absolute angel and I really like him, so I'm more than happy to give this a good read before it comes out. I've also bumped this up on my March TBR. If you've read Do No Harm, you'll know that it just gets into it right from the beginning, so I'm very excited to see what this one holds. And the cover is so interesting. I'm like, what? To be fair, I don't actually know a whole lot about this still, but yeah, I'm buzzing to read it. So that concludes my small February wrap up and my February haul. It was a really good month for books in February, getting books. Not so much reading books, but March will be different. I can feel it. I am already halfway through 2 books and it's only the beginning of March, so I can't wait to see it. But yeah, if you got to here, thank you so much, and thank you to everyone who's subscribed so far. Like, I'm really close to 50 subscribers, which probably sounds like nothing to a lot of people, but to me I'm like, that's 50 whole people who've took their time out of their day to follow me, so I appreciate that so much. And yeah, I'll catch you in the next one.